We all make this mistake. We identify too closely with the output of our work or the roles that we occupy. So we shape our identity around the tasks we perform, the things that we do, the role that we have. And those things are not only changeable, but literally will change. When they change, not if, when they change, that change doesn't just feel like a change to our work, it feels like a change to our identity.
What if I told you the biggest mistake people make in their careers is tying their identity to their job, and that the key to long-term success isn't just working hard, it's actually to make yourself unshakable so that you're prepared for anything that life throws at you. Hey, my name's Arjun Mahadevan. I'm the founder and CEO of doula.com, a venture-backed fintech startup here in New York City. If you're looking for more information on what we do, you can check us out at doula.com. I've been running a series called the 15-Minute Founder, where I sit down with some of the world's best entrepreneurs to understand the secrets, the tactics and tricks that have shaped their success. In this video, I sat down with Jason Feifer, editor-in-chief of Entrepreneur Magazine, where he broke down how to future-proof your career, build an identity separate from your work, and how to think like an entrepreneur, whether you're starting a business or scaling a business today. If you've ever worried about career stability, personal growth, or navigating change, this conversation is a must-watch. Without further ado, let's dive in. I now want to ask you about, and I think this might relate to, you wrote a book. It's called Build for Tomorrow, and there's an action plan for embracing change, adapting fast, and then I like this concept of future-proofing your career.
Yeah.
Can you explain to people what that actually means? How do you future-proof your career, and is it that intersection of what you're good at, what you enjoy? How can people think about that concept?
Well, I think that's a part of it. So look, there is no way to literally future-proof your career, which is to say to just do something right now that protects you against any future damage or unforeseen change. But what you can do right now is be thinking about, how do I use today to set myself up best for tomorrow? And the starting point for me is actually not about your career, but it's really about you as a person and understanding your own personal, unique relationship with change. So what I've found is that the most adaptable people, which I think are the most successful people, have a really clear understanding of what I like to call the thing that does not change in times of change. What about them is unchangeable? What about them can create new opportunities regardless of what shifts around them? And the starting point for that is that I always encourage entrepreneurs to give themselves a mission statement. And I'll explain what that is in a second, but to back up and explain the value and importance of it, I think that I bet you do it, I've done it, we all make this mistake in which we identify too closely with the output of our work or the roles that we occupy. So we shape our identity around the tasks we perform, the things that we do, the role that we have. And those things are not only changeable, but literally will change. And so when they change, not if, when they change, that change doesn't just feel like a change to our work, it feels like a change to our identity. I, for example, used to identify as a newspaper reporter. That was my first job out of college. I was a newspaper reporter, and I loved being a newspaper reporter up until the time where I discovered that being a newspaper reporter kind of sucks. The hours are terrible, the pay is very bad, and constant talk of layoffs. I stayed in that job for way too long. And the reason was because I was a newspaper reporter. It was my identity. And if I was not a newspaper reporter, if I left newspapers, well, what was I? I was nothing. So here's a better way to think about it. Like I said, you create a mission statement for yourself. You create clarity on what about you does not change in times of change. Come up with a single sentence. It starts with I, and then after that, every word carefully selected because it is not anchored to something that's easily changeable. So for me, for example, it is the difference between today, I am a magazine editor, which is very changeable. Literally one phone call from the president of Entrepreneur Media telling me that my services are no longer required, and I'm not a magazine editor anymore. So if that's my identity, I'm one phone call away from losing it. That's a scary place to be. But what about this? I tell stories in my own voice. I tell stories. I do stories all the time. I'll tell you 5 stories in the 15 minutes that we're sitting here. I advise founders and I tell them stories. I stand on stages and I tell stories. You can't take that away from me. No phone call can take that away from me. I tell stories in my own voice, me setting the terms for how I want to operate at this stage of my career. I talk to founders. I share this exercise in front of large groups. People come up to me and they tell me the most amazing things. They say, I help teams achieve greatness. They say, I solve the most complex problems. If you understand yourself at that granular level, then you realize that you have something transferable that is valuable regardless of what changes around you. And every new thing in front of you is an opportunity to do the thing that you already do best. Once you understand yourself in that way, you are starting to future-proof your career.
Okay, that's gold. I want to get a step deeper here.
Yeah.
And let's get some of this. We're going to give this advice for free that you tactically give startups
Yeah.
or founders. You've taken the plunge or embraced this fear several times on this. You have a podcast, Top Voice on LinkedIn, within your own personal entrepreneurship journey. Let's take an aspiring entrepreneur. Many aspiring entrepreneurs out there. I believe everyone has that entrepreneurial itch inside them.
Yeah.
Mission statement is tied towards, hey, they want to help people or have an impact. They want to be an entrepreneur. What do you advise them? Like, they're scared to take that plunge. You're sitting in a room with them, many of them listening to you right now. Do you convince them to become an entrepreneur? Should everyone be an entrepreneur?
Oh, no. Oh, no. I mean, I agree with you that everyone's got some kind of itch, but I don't know that that itch is always to start a company. There is a groundbreaking psychological theory. It was popularized in the 1980s. It's called self-determination theory. It says that everybody, and this, I should say, this revolutionized our understanding of motivation, and decades of research have confirmed it. Humans need three things in order to be happy and to be motivated. And I said ARC, this is how I remember it, the word ARC. So A, autonomy. They need some control over their decisions. R is relatedness. They need to feel connected to the other people around them. And then C is competency. They need to feel that they're good at the thing that they do. ARC, autonomy, relatedness, competency. I think everyone needs that. And some people find it in entrepreneurship. They find it by taking full control over their own career, by building something of their own. It's not the only way that you can find it. And I don't think that entrepreneurship is the path necessarily for everyone. I think that thinking like an entrepreneur is incredibly valuable for everyone. But you could do that inside of another company if you want. You could apply this mentality to the way in which you live your life and to the way in which you pursue your greatest passions. I find when people they're lacking motivation, when people are feeling adrift, when people don't understand how to diagnose their own sense of feeling lost, ARC is a really helpful way to break down and identify what do you have and what do you need. These are needs. These are needs. If you are hungry and you go to the refrigerator and there's no food in the refrigerator, the hunger doesn't go away. And the same is true for these things. If you do not have autonomy, relatedness, or competency in your work, you need it. You will go and try to find it in some other places, sometimes very unhealthfully. So I would say for some people, being an entrepreneur is a way to satisfy that. For others, it may be something else. I would never push somebody into a path that they are not ready for, but I would certainly encourage people to explore what their needs are and the best ways to find them. And for some people, that is entrepreneurship.
I love that. I want to actually apply this exact concept to your current role. You're editor-in-chief of entrepreneur.com. Things are changing in media. There's new tech that's joining, new tech that's being created before our eyes. There's tech that's going to be created we don't even know exists. How do you take that concept of ARC and acting like an entrepreneur in your role now? And what is the landscape for media going forward?
Oh boy, you bundled a lot together there.
How are you preparing for that change by acting like an entrepreneur with ARC, autonomy, relatedness, and connection in your role?
Yeah. Well, so let me introduce yet one more concept here, and then I'll tie it all together, because this is really the way in which I think specifically about media, but I think it's the way that everyone needs to be thinking about everything that they do. I have this question. It's so simple, and yet I think so powerful that I devoted literally a full page to it in my book, which is to say that there's a page that is blank and it just says this, and I want people to tear it out and put it on their wall. And that question is, what is this for? And I feel like you need to be asking that of everything that you do, and you need to be making decisions based on the real honest answer to that question. And that question, or rather that answer, is going to change over time. So here's an example from media. If you were to have asked 2 decades ago, 3 decades ago, what is content for? I'm in the content business. What is this for? Well, the answer was very simple. 2 things. Number one, it's for, or rather one thing, but 2 ways. It's for monetization, and it's for monetization through the sale of subscriptions and the sale of advertising. There were 2 ways to monetize that content, and that's what content was for. Now, it has to be good and it has to be relevant, but like from a business perspective, what is it for? It's for monetization. Now, that's a harder thing to say. Monetizing content is difficult for all sorts of reasons. There's a lot of subscription fatigue out there. People don't want to pay for subscriptions as much. There's so much free content out there. Also, it's much harder to get advertising against content. And I'm not just talking about Entrepreneur here. I'm talking about literally the entire media ecosystem is going through this. There's a phrase called Google Zero kicking around, where publishers are talking about what does it look like to operate in Google Zero, which is to say when 0% of your traffic is coming from Google. So if you're a publisher now and you ask, what is content for? I don't think the answer is monetization. And if that's true, well, then you have to follow the next logical step. Is there another answer to this question? What is content for? And to me, the answer is content is for relationships, because people trust you when they value and they trust your content. And if they trust you because of the content, then they could trust products and services that you develop and can sell them, and they will buy that because they trust you because of the content. So it's about the relationship that you build. And if that's true, then everything else that you do has to follow from that logical conclusion. So now it's a question of, okay, if the content is for the relationship, then how do we produce the content that is going to maximize that relationship? How do we understand who trusts us because of our content, and therefore what can we provide them that they need? I mean, this is the reason that brands get into content in the first place, right? Red Bull doesn't make its money off of content, even though it's producing all sorts of content, magazine, website, and events. That's not where they make their money. They make their money off of energy drinks, and people buy the energy drinks because they trust them because of the content. That's the way it's supposed to work. So what are we thinking at Entrepreneur? We're thinking that. We're thinking we are in an environment where monetization purely of content is going to become harder and harder, but relationships are strong. People know the brand, they trust the brand because of the content. So what do we do about that? And that leads to really interesting questions and conversations about products and about ways to directly engage readership and so on. So that's what we're thinking about. Now, how do you fit ARC into that? Well, I think that you have to make sure that the thing that you're building fulfills that at every level. And, it may not for everybody. It may not, because let's say that somebody joined a media organization because they loved a certain kind of content production that may just be less common now, and they're less interested in products, or they're less interested in direct engagement with entrepreneurs. And therefore they may feel like the thing that they came for is no longer going to be, and this is just totally hypothetical, but they find the thing that they came for is no longer there. They're going to get forced into this other role that they're not interested in. They're going to feel a loss of autonomy. They feel a loss of autonomy. They may feel less connected to the colleagues who are more excited about this direction. And also they may not feel as good, or they may not feel that they're as good at doing the thing that the company now requires. They're going to lose A, R, and C. And at that point, it's not the right role for them anymore, and they're going to have to find what is. But everyone has to go through that, and that's the nature of change.
Hope you guys enjoyed this conversation. I certainly enjoyed chatting with them, and you can find the full video on my channel. As you can tell, these typically go over 15 minutes. Now, we have more interviews just like this coming live soon, but I also want to share a behind-the-scenes look at my life starting and scaling Doula, a venture-backed fintech startup here in New York City. That includes how I run my life, the challenges the team faces, how we've raised venture capital, and more. So please like and subscribe the channel for more content just like this. Hope to see you soon, and if you're looking to start and scale your business from anywhere in the world, check out doula.com. Thanks so much. See you next time.